Another podcast catering for all your Southern Rugby League requirements. This week, the England coach Steve McNamara praising the community game and volunteers helping expand the rugby league scenery outside of the heartlands. Skolars Chief Executive Hector McNeil tells us of their hopes of developing a future at the New River Stadium. We talk about the game's media coverage as well so far in 2013 with journalist and now London RFL media man David Lawrenson. We'll hear about a schools competition taking shape in South Wales, and we'll hear from the winners of the London Nines, the Tri-Tag Rugby All-Stars. First though, this week, the England head coach Steve McNamara came to London for a bit of a media tour. You can read about it on numerous websites, numerous interviews done with him and numerous features written, but also in the London Broncos Matchday programme this weekend. I've written about his visit to BBC London for our Monday lunchtime programme on the TV in my column for the Matchday programme this weekend for the St Helens game, and he's been telling me about his thoughts on the community game across and wider afield in the capital, the Broncos, Kieran Dixon, and of course two big World Cup semi-finals at Wembley in northwest London. A big opportunity to attract new people to our game.
It is. It's all like got to wear two hats, really. You know, from the actual England coach's perspective, it's all about performance. It's all about maximising every advantage that we can get and make sure we get a winning performance in the semi-final to get us through to a final. But realistically, when you look at the bigger picture and the importance of the World Cup, the Rugby League World Cup, to everybody involved in England, and probably even more so in the London area, it's very important. And the two semi-finals, back-to-back, double-header, you know, the big hit, as the campaign is called, to get as many southern-based people, Londoners, down to Wembley, to what will be two fantastic games, brilliant games to see, but also a brilliant occasion for everybody who just loves sport to come and experience.
What's your thoughts about how rugby league is outside of what people would call the heartlands? You know, looking at London as an area of the south, you know, you've got Gloucestershire and Oxford. How do you think it's going in terms of the expansion?
I think we are strong up north. Obviously, it's our stronghold. It's where our game, you know, has got its roots, basically. But you know, we're trying to branch out. We have to be careful we don't do it too quickly, and we have to be careful that, you know, we don't invest, you know, too much money or time in areas what isn't going to work. But I'm really, really pleased by the amount of amateur clubs there are down south in the southern-based area, and the support that we get from individuals in and around that area. Now, there isn't, there's one major professional club, which is Harlequins at this moment in time.
The Broncos. London Broncos.
Oh, sorry, I keep calling them Harlequins, don't I? Yeah. The Broncos, and London is such a big area, isn't it? That if you live on the other side, then it's probably a 2-hour drive on game day to get there. So, you know, I think the advent of Oxford, you know, Hemel, Gloucester, you know, a lot of these professional clubs, London Skolars, obviously, what's down south, that it can only enhance the good work that we're doing, and hopefully at some stage we'll have a major breakthrough. And you know, it won't be just one big thing. You know, it's a continual push all the time of keeping the momentum going. But what the Rugby League World Cup and the big hit does give us, it gives an opportunity to give it a massive push and get that momentum going even quicker.
Because it would be massive, wouldn't it, to get fans of rugby league in the south, or even people who've never seen the game before. But the fact is, this is a World Cup. You know, it's a double-header semi-final. You know, they don't get much in terms of like world events or world sporting events. There are bigger ones, but they don't get too much bigger.
You don't, and it's only the 8th ever World Cup held in England. I was surprised when I heard that. You know, and obviously I can't reel the other 7 off. I know a couple of them, but it's only the 8th time there's been a World Cup held in England, and with the quality of sport that you will see, you know, I'll guarantee you it is the highest level of sport. These players who are and athletes who are performing on the field of play, you won't see better athletes anywhere in the world in terms of any type of sport. You know, they're big men, strong men who can run fast, run through brick walls of different shapes, different sizes, and there's so much variety for everybody to see and excitement to see. So it is a huge event, full stop, and one that really anybody who lives down south, don't miss the opportunity to expose yourself to what I'm sure you will enjoy.
What do you think of the London Broncos this year? It's been a bit tough for them for a couple of years now, and I think a lot of people look on and think they should be doing better than they arguably are with the roster they've got. I mean, is that sort of from a coaching point of view what you think?
I think that there's a few teams with a few difficulties, and everyone's faced with those in each and every area. As a national coach, I would love all 14 teams. Obviously 13 if you take Catalan Dragons who are France based out of the equation. I would love all the other 13 teams to be as strong as they possibly can, producing lots of good young English talent, what can be nurtured and brought into the England national setup. So the Broncos have done that with certain people. Tony Clubb, Louis McCarthy-Scarsborough have come through. Kieran Dixon is currently with our England Knights, as Dan Sargentson was last season as well. So I think there's some real shoots and some real positivity around some of their younger based players, but obviously from a performance perspective the results haven't quite been the way that everyone would have liked for that club this year.
You mentioned Kieran Dixon. He's caught a few headlines this year. He's top of the try-scoring charts, or joint top at the moment in Super League. He's having an amazing season, and credit to him to be going so well in a side that aren't really going as well as sort of his counterparts. I
think that's a sign, isn't it, of somebody who's doing really well. It's quite often when your team's going great, it's quite easy to fall into that flow and go along with it. But to achieve what he's achieving is tremendous. For the player himself. He was part of our England Knights setup last year. It was great to see him on the field of play. It was great to see how he conducted himself around the group, and it is new when you go into a national setup in a different environment, so that's been a good learning experience for him. He's taken that, progressed his game this year, and if he continues with that improvement, I'm sure we may, in the foreseeable future, see another Londoner, a genuine Londoner in the England National Rugby League team.
What do you think of him and his skills as well? He's quite erratic when he's gone on some of his runs, and it's sort of a bit of a, I don't know, he seems to have developed his rugby league brain quite early on in his career because he hasn't been playing for too long. That's
credit to him, and I think that's one area we'll still need to continue to develop. It's that natural instinct for a game that maybe isn't natural to you, and he's got all the athletic ability in the world. He can beat people for fun. He's quick. He's very powerful and strong for a man with small stature, and I know it's been likened to Jason Robinson's style, in terms of his stature and physique, and there is a real comparison in that regard. But his general rugby league knowledge is something that I know he's working on. I know his coaches are working on, and I'm sure just by playing more and more games against the standard that he's playing against, he's going to bring him on no leaps.
What have you made of Super League this year as well? No doubt you wanted to be a strong year for the World Cup. Have you been happy with what you've seen from the English players this year?
I think it's been mixed. If I'm being perfectly honest, I think there's been some really good games. I think there's been some really poor games as well. And it's that week in that intensity, week in, week out, that our players desperately need to improve. And some of our games are providing that. Like I said, some of our games aren't providing that. So that's a constant challenge for everybody who's in charge of the game, making sure we get the balance right with the number of teams, number of clubs, players, where those players are. But certainly, I think the season, as the weather's starting to warm up now, I think the season is certainly going to start to warm up, and the Super League is going to go from strength to strength, and some cracking Challenge Cup ties as well, what are coming up with most of our Super League teams involved.
And there's certain teams as well that sort of seem to hit their straps really towards the end of the season. It's exactly what you want with the Super League and the playoffs, and no doubt something like that would be perfect for the World Cup, a kind of continuation of their season further.
Yeah, it's a really long season, and to be at your very best from February when they start playing right the way through to November the 30th, where it was the World Cup final, is nearly impossible task. So I'm quite happy for the players to be going along nicely now, staying free of injuries. But like you said, coming into the back end of the year in really good form is probably the key, and taking that into a World Cup tournament, that is, to win it, we are going to have to be at our very best all across the park.
We've talked about you coming down south. You've been to the Brixton Bulls, you've been to see the Sussex Merlins, you've seen numerous amateur clubs. Is that the most impressive part of what's happening in rugby league in the south? I mean, maybe you might have seen something else, but the fact of the smaller clubs just springing up here or there to show that the game is really starting to sort of take a hold.
Yeah, it's those shoots what you're seeing, and it gives you, a real idea that the game is starting to take a hold. And every sport, needs its grassroots, full stop. And we need as many kids playing the game as we possibly can. And those kids actually need a really strong, thriving professional club to probably get hold of, or to support. And if they haven't got that club nearby, then hopefully it can be the England national team that gives them that impetus to continue playing. But it's certainly, that is one impressive aspect, as is the actual amount of effort and enthusiasm that is put in by all the volunteers down south as well. We forget, we talk about the players a lot, but number of volunteers who just spend hours and hours investing the time, whether that be a coach, an administrator, part of the medical staff or whatever it may be, is very, very impressive, and long may it continue.
So praise for Kieran Dixon, the London Broncos youngster, and I think, as Steve says, definite prospect for the future. If Kieran keeps going and keeps working within the squad, then a bright future ahead, and hopefully many more London Broncos bred players will continue to get international call-ups. We see it quite frequently now within the emerging stars and the youth performance sort of squads. So I'm sure that will come through to the first team as well over the next few years. That's the England head coach Steve McNamara talking about the Wembley semi-finals as well. Have you got your ticket? Are you going to what they're now calling the big hit? If you didn't see online, there was a great video with Boris Johnson, Martin Afire and a tackle bag. Now, unfortunately, the video isn't quite what you might hope it would be, but have a look. It was posted by the Rugby League World Cup 2013 media people. Go and have a look, though, a video of Martin Afire talking about the big hit, as they're calling it, at Wembley in November, and also Boris Johnson getting in on the action as well. Now, on to the London Broncos, and if you didn't see, they trained with the Gillingham football squad this week. Gillingham had just won the League 2 title. They had a penalty shootout using both a football and a rugby ball. It's definitely worth seeing. It's on YouTube. There is a link from the Gillingham website or my Twitter feed if you want to scroll back a little bit, but you must see the penalty from Mike Bichet. We heard from him on the programme in the last couple of weeks. Was it last week? I'm not sure. My memory's gone. But yes, we heard from Mike, and it's an amazing penalty. It's about a minute and 10 seconds into the video, so search it on YouTube or go through the Gillingham website and have a look. It's an unbelievable penalty. I sent him a message on Twitter. What is he? Mikey Bichet 17H, I think is his username. It's got a H on it. I didn't know that. It said I'd already taken one and scored, but their manager, Martin Allen, said I had to retake it, so I thought I'd give it a go. If you wonder what he gave a go and have a look. It's an exceptional penalty. The squad taking on St Helens in the Super League this weekend. 1 o'clock kick-off at the Stoop, seeking a first home win against them in over 11 years. In the entire history of fixtures, Broncos have won 5, or London have won 5, Saints have won 35. There's been 2 draws in the history of games between the two sides, and Dave Farrer on Twitter pointing out to me, I've just realised now that the 17H of Mikey Bichet was 17 hours ago, so it's Mikey Bichet on Twitter. I copied that message into my script 17 hours after I sent it, obviously. So Dave Farrer, he's at Broncos Scholar on Twitter, sent me a message to say they've only got 1 win against Saints at home since 1980. Wow, there we go. And Dave's full of stats. In fact, Dave did start doing a podcast about Rugby League down south before I did on Twitter. He was the trailblazer for this season in particular. Doesn't do it anymore, but I wondered, I know Dave listens to the programme as well, he started doing a bit of a quiz question every week to hook you in and draw you into finding out what the answer was the following week. Do you know what? They were tough questions as well. You need to know your rugby league stuff in the south. So what I'm wondering is, Dave, if you are listening to this, I'll send you an email as well. I wonder if we can get you to record a question every week, and then the following week you can give us the answer and give us a fresh question. Like I say, I didn't get any of the questions that he posed on the few podcasts that he did. They were, I think, detailed and knowledgeable, and I won't say very historic, but no, if you've watched the game for as long as Dave has, and many fans in and around London, then you may well know. So, Dave, if you're interested, let's get that going next week. Saints, though, this weekend without Melly, Wilkin and Gardner, also with a number of injuries as well. Melly, Wilkin and Gardner are all suspended. Phil Kinsella, a commentator at Radio Merseyside, says it'll be a very interesting handicap, London versus Saints. Can't recall ever Saints being injury hit and suspensions quite like this. Will it be an opportunity for Broncos? And having got a home win in the Challenge Cup against Featherstone Rovers, can they get a second one of the season? We'll find out on Saturday. Now on to the London Skolars, and as we wait to hear more news about Broncos and their venue for next year, any long-suffering listeners of my programmes may have heard the Skolars are also exploring opportunities to improve their playing venue. The Skolars Chief Executive Hector McNeil has told me of the current situation with the new River Stadium, and as well talks of potential other options which are available to them. But also about the on-field form, which after a great start in the Northern Rail Cup has somewhat dipped in recent weeks with 2 defeats so far in Championship 1.
Yeah, I think the Hemel result was probably the start of it, really, because I think we probably turned up that game thinking we were going to win that quite comfortably, and obviously Hemel turned up and we didn't, so I think that was a start. And then we had a pretty decent performance of a Whitehaven who pulled away from us. Midway through the game, and then the guys really dug in and came back, and we actually were unlucky not to win that game, but to do that. And then I think, a couple of injuries and, long distance travel up to a very, very good Crusaders side, was maybe a game too far for us over those 3 weeks, and, for all it was 6-12 at half time, I think they just pulled away from us in the second half, and, if we'd have been here talking about a win and a 1 point from a 12-point difference, we would have been pretty happy with that, but as we are, we're not talking about that, so we've got to really get back on track pretty quickly.
There's a long way to go in this season, and Championship 1 has really only just got going, hasn't it? You had your Northern Rail Cup games, which you did rather well in at the start of the season, but I guess there's plenty to go on, as much as it's been a bit of a blip, but it's not really impacted yet sort of massively on the Championship 1 season, if you can get a good run of results now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think this South Wales Scorpion game at the start of May is going to be absolutely massive for us. That's a good chance to get back on the bike. I mean, we give them an absolute hiding at their spot at the start of the season in the Northern Rail Cup. They'll be a lot better than that now, and we've got to go in there and just do the basics and grind out a win. And if we can do that, I think we'll be right back on track. And who knows where we'll end up? And it's quite exciting because the Friday Night Lights game is against Crusaders, and hopefully, that's in a position for us to vie for being right up there, or perhaps even being at top of the league,
And this is one of your Super Sunday fixtures, I think it is what you're calling it. Is this sort of a different to a regulation fixture at the New River?
Yeah, what we tried to do this season is we're trying to build the crowds gradually, and part of building the crowds is trying to get more of the local community going in. And since the funding for the community sports coach has been withdrawn, we've drawn quite heavily on the community team to actually sell tickets, and for them to be able to sell tickets, they've got to have something to offer. So, we're trying to put on some live entertainment, after the game, some, real ale, some good food, all that sort of thing to encourage, the local support to come down. I think it's also a reaction to the fact that, there's a lot of new sides in the league that, historically don't have any travelling support per se. So from that perspective, you've got to rely on your own home crowd. So we're trying to build that up from the bottom up, really. And so far, so good, actually. I mean, the guys have done a pretty decent job. We have good crowds against the Hemel home fixtures, and hopefully we can build on it with South Wales.
I say this sentence on quite a few of my programmes, but this is probably a stupid question, but I don't mind asking stupid questions. How come you want to grow the crowd at the New River? Is it a financial thing, or is it a fact that, if you do aim for promotion, do get into Championship, then more people sort of in the New River would be one, good for profile and good for the coffers?
Yeah, I mean, we worked pretty hard for nearly 20 years at the Skolars to get to where we are, and we're an odd mix of a sort of community club and a professional club. So we have teams all the way to minis up to first team, and my frustration over the last couple of seasons is we've got over 250 players at the club. And actually, unlocking that potential in terms of their families and their friends, and getting them to games and building that up. And I think the more people that go to games, the better the atmosphere, the better the experience of coming down to the Skolars, and the more it embeds itself into the local community. And I think that's got to be a positive thing, whether it's financial or just the overall well-being of the club generally. So I think it's a sort of almost like the lifeblood of the club. If you've got the juniors through to the seniors to local fans coming along, I think you can't go wrong, really.
Talking of the New River, we've talked on occasion about sort of plans for the New River and sort of development and turning it into more of a stadium and a facility rather than the sort of council-run track and sort of they've got there now. Any further updates on sort of potential partnerships there?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting times, to be honest. I mean, there's a company called Fusion that's been given the short-term lease off New River to run the place. And it's fairly likely they're going to get the long-term lease for it as well. And part of that process will be the renewal and the regeneration of the stadium. These guys are a charitable trust, and Skolars, from what their plans we've seen that they've submitted to the council, we're at the heart of that. And part of it will be probably to lose the track, and focus the facility more on providing a top-class facility for pro rugby league and some level of good standard football. And I think that's ongoing, and we're keeping a really good eye on that. But that's probably as positive a place that's been for a long, long time. And then we're also talking to the Harringay Council, Enfield Council, and Waltham Forest in terms of what potential sites there are in those areas as well. I mean, one of the exciting chats I had last week was I actually talked to the Saracens Amateurs Club in Southgate, where the old Saracens professional team used to play before they moved off to Watford. And they're very keen to talk to us about doing some sort of sharing arrangement as well. Plus, there's 2 or 3 other sites we've looked at as well. So, we're either looking at a sort of, being a senior member of a large stakeholder group at New River, or trying to get our own facility that we can, bring other stakeholders in, but be the primary partner there. So I think we're as well placed as we have been for a long time at looking at that facility. I mean, the one thing I would say is that there aren't many sporting sites in Zone 3 of London that's got 44 acres of fields there, and that's what New River does have. And for all it does need a bit of lick of paint and a bit of an upgrade. It's a pretty decent facility. So if we can stay there and we can get the right deal and get the right plan in place, then that's obviously what we'd like to do.
So I guess that's your preference, like you say. It's a great site in a way you don't see any value in going to another geographical area in terms of the business, the marketing, crowds and stuff like that. You're quite happy that the New River is where you can set down deeper roots and grow.
Yeah, I mean, we've been there since '97, so it would be a hell of a give-up, I think, to move elsewhere. So I think if we were moving, we try to move within a short car journey from where we are today. And I think, we're well known across the various boroughs of London, where the northeast boroughs. And so I think, everybody would like to have us. In fact, the guy I'm talking to at Waltham Forest, for example, he's the ex-league councillor for Waltham Forest, and he's an ex-Skolars player. So, our alumni gets very far now. So, you've got to keep your eyes open and see. But I think we'd want to be within a reasonable distance of where we are today, to basically not mean that we're moving too many routes. We've seen, the weakness of the Broncos moving, perennially, and we've generally not done that. And I think it's allowed us to grow a decent business and grow a decent crowd and a decent player base. And I think the exciting addition for us over the last recent years is to do more things in the city as well. So we've got the 2 bases now, so we're quite happy with that.
You had the success of the Capital Challenge at the beginning of the year. Your sort of showcase fixture really for the season, and then in particular sort of your season now. Joe Mabou, still your coach. We've mentioned the form, not quite as good as you would hope at the moment, but I guess what you've seen with Joe over the years is some great development into a really solid head coach, and he looks exciting, sort of what he can do with the Skolars, and he seems to have really settled in and settled down to that role well now. Yeah,
I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because in sport, perennially, if somebody doesn't get results, there's always a lot of pressure on the clubs to make changes. My view is that Joe's a quality guy. He was Skolars player from the age of 12 up. He's probably still one of London's most experienced players that's come through the system in terms of the number of professional games he's played. And I think Joe's got a really, really unique trait in him. I think he's extremely honest and he's a tough man. And that really does bring a good man management process to the players. Is he perfect? No, he's not, and I don't think, even Steve McNamara will claim to be perfect. But I think, I like to deal with Joe. I think he's got the right sort of principles, and I think he handles people pretty well. And I think he knows what the challenges of London are, and I think he has taken the club, to quite a far process over the last couple of years. And I think I always said when I brought Joe in, he'd be a 3-year project, and this is his 3rd year, and I think this will be his year when he can succeed, and things like the dipping form, that's where you see the mettle of the guy and what he can do to improve that and take us to the next level. And I think he's got all that in his kit bag, really.
And on that 3-year project, he's only gone and got you into a final as well, into a finals day, the Northern Rail Bowl up at Halifax, sort of later on in the year. A massive day out, really, for Skolars. I know you're trying to take some fans up there as well and have a good day out, but a great opportunity to put a bit of silverware in your cupboard, which will be most welcome. Yeah,
I think, barring the fact that we could still get to the final proper.
Absolutely.
And it could be somebody else's berth in the ball final, but I think it'll be a fantastic day for the club, and we're planning to take all the juniors, play some games up there, and obviously bring their family with them, and take a couple of coach squads at least up there and make some noise, and I think I was just thinking about it tonight that on an event like that, it's anybody's game, and whoever turns up and wants it most will win it, and hopefully the lads will see that opportunity and think, some of them may never get that chance again in front of a big crowd and prove that, we can play some rugby league down here. So, it's a massive, massive day for the club, and hopefully this season it won't be the last chance for you to get some silverware or get to a final either. So, that would be the aim, and maybe give us a bit of preparation and a chance to prove what we can do, really.
The London Skolars Chief Executive, Hector McNeil, always good to chat with him, always get some good information, so it updates us to the situation of rugby league in North London. And interesting times ahead. Let's just hope that Joe and the boys can get the side together and march up the table for this year, and I'm sure they've got lofty ambitions, really, and it would be great to see them in Championship 1. It would be a very big step up for the London Skolars, but it's something that I'm sure they would want. In fact, I know they want, and it would be a great test. So, we'll see the geographical nature of Championship 1 this year, but it'd be nice to see the Skolars into the Championship and maybe have a Super League, a Championship and a Championship 1 sides all from in the south as well, with Hemel and Oxford and all sorts. So there's potential there for the future, isn't there? Best of luck to Skolars for the rest of the season. And if anything happens with the potential developments of Stadia or the new river, then I'm sure we'll bring you it here on Rugby League Down South. As ever, should have mentioned before, if you want to comment on the programme, rldownsouth@gmail.com is the email address. If you are on Twitter, you can send me a message anytime at Ian Ramsdale. And if you do listen on iTunes, I know a few of you do listen on iTunes, but have rated or commented on the podcast. Thank you for that. It's very much appreciated. But if you are on iTunes, we've done well in recent weeks to get sort of promoted and feature in their sort of new and noteworthy section. So if you do just put a rating on the podcast or leave a little comment, it does boost it up the rankings a little bit. So if you can do that, it would be great. It'll hopefully draw more people into exploring rugby league in the south of England. In terms of Championship 1 sides, Hemel played their final Northern Rail Cup group game. It was a defeat to the North Wales Crusaders up at Pennine Way at 24 points to 36. In fact, Hemel were 18-0 down at half-time, and they did well in the second half to score 24 points. But both sides made changes for the test, really, I guess, for fringe sides, and another experience for Hemel as well, for a semi-professional side, fitting in a mid-week replay as well, a rearranged game. But the draw for the last 16 ties in the Northern Rail Cup is next Wednesday. Of course, Skolars and North Wales Crusaders now going into that draw, knowing that if they lose in the further stages of the competition, they fall back into that Northern Rail Bowl final. And Skolars, as we heard from Hector, looking forward to a day out in Halifax, whether it be in the Northern Rail Cup final or the Northern Rail Bowl final. I think you've pretty much got to say the Championship side will be stronger in the Northern Rail Cup. But let's see what happens. You never know which way it will go. And on the subject of Hemel, Jack Howison, 13 years at Sheffield Eagles, their captain, prop forward, started his career with Hemel Stags way back when, had to retire this week, sort of the workload from his day job, home life as well with the family, and a recent injury as well, and an operation meant that he just, I think the time had come for him to sort of say no, he's going to retire. So it was kind of unexpected, I think, because he didn't intend to do it this week in particular, whether he was thinking about the end of the season or in the future. But I think all things just coming together. He announced his retirement, and we've spoken to him on my Championships Rugby League podcast, which you can find on iTunes and on Spreaker as well. However you listen to this, you can find my Rugby League Championships programme. We spoke to him in the March version of the programme, but he's been a great servant to Sheffield Eagles, but like I say, starting at Hemel Stags, and he's one of the people that he's well known at Hemel as to go on and do good things, and he's always trying to shout about Hemel as well. So best of luck to Jack in the future. He posted a message on Twitter, having received hundreds of good luck messages, saying thanks to everyone for the nice messages. It's been a very hard decision for me, but I require with no regrets. But best of luck, Jack, for the future. Now, one thing I've been commenting on myself on Twitter this week has been media coverage that the game has been getting in the South. It's been a good week, really, with the World Cup trophy and Steve McNamara being in town. So I thought I'd talk to the RFL's media man down in London, David Lawrenson, a very experienced journalist for many publications, rugby league fan, has covered the sport in the South since its early days in 1980. And as much as this might be a little indulgent journo chat, and it is quite long, I hope it gives you an insight into how things happen and what's being done media-wise within London and the South. David does a regular blog on the London RL website. It's called Lawro On London. The website londonrl.com has many useful, interesting pieces about what's happening with the game, contacts and stuff like that, so it's worth checking out, bookmarking. I'm sure you may well already know of it already, but worth having a look on a daily or weekly basis, londonrl.com. But with this blog, I asked David initially, before we got on to too much wider issues, where the idea for his blog had come from.
Well, it came from my manager, actually, Dan Steele, who's the regional manager at London Rugby League. We're always talking through things, how we can improve coverage, etc. And he mentioned the idea of a blog, a good kind of maybe 9 months ago, something like that. And I kind of ummed and ahed because, to me, blogs are quite personal, and yet I work for a governing body, and sometimes, I didn't want to be too formal, but yet you can't be too mischievous and irreverent. And I thought for quite a while, how when I do this, is it possible to do this? And I kind of had a eureka moment. I suddenly thought, I think I know how to do this. So I just started putting a bit of kind of humour in it, and just being a bit, personal, really. It'll come through very clearly that I'm from St Helens, and I've been a lifelong Saints fan, etc. And also, I'm a music fan. I used to write about rock music years and years ago, so bits of that come through. And I think it just adds a bit of interest to it, and maybe gives people a flavour of my personality, and also my love of rugby league. So I think I've done about 25 now, so that's what is that kind of 6 months worth.
And I think as well, it's not just that, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on in London Rugby League from week to week, and quite often people don't really hear about it or read about it or see about it, and this is a great way. It's been a great way for me to sort of find out from, on a week to week basis, quite what happens.
That's a very good point, Ian, because I did think at one point, everybody will know about the stuff I'm writing about, so, am I just regurgitating kind of old news and things like that? But I've been amazed at, the response, really, and how people don't see everything. And if I just think about, my own life, immersed in rugby league, but sometimes I don't see things, or miss things, or one of my colleagues will kind of jog my memory about something. So, you're absolutely right. I try and get in as much as I can about what's going on in the region. Not only, Broncos and Skolars or whatever, but any little things, things that I go and see, like I go and watch Richmond Warriors.
Yeah.
Sometime on a Saturday morning, and that's great. Absolutely love it. Or go down to Elmbridge. They'll have a festival or something like that. And you kind of forget that not everybody sees these things or hears about these things. But also, I think it's great for the people down there to realise that, actually, someone's given us a mention. And one of the funny things was, I think at the awards at the end of last season, I'd mentioned Hammersmith Hills Hoyce, who won the local grand final, etc. Yeah. And their guy, Steve Royal, and I mentioned him a couple of times, and he said, "Oh yeah, a couple of mates in Australia pick it up now."
Oh wow!
So I thought, oh right, I better be very careful what I say about the Aussies.
Well, you mentioned going along to all these events and talking to these people as well. You'll know from your many years working as a journalist, now doing journalism with the governing body, the RFL. But those places are where you often find the best stories.
Of course they are, and I've over the last kind of 6 months or so, I've started doing features which thankfully have got onto the Evening Standard website and some of your websites as well, and particularly the semi-pro game, like the Skolars and Hemel Stags, etc., because they have jobs and they have quite interesting backgrounds, and I love writing about those. And one in particular stands out, Adi Adebisi, the winger at Skolars, who has sickle cell anemia, and which is a crippling disease. And basically, growing up, was told that he shouldn't play any kind of sport at all, and yet he does at a very high level. And it was just a great human interest story. And you pick those up kind of around and about. Just someone happened to mention it, so made a few inquiries, and then talked to Adi, and it was a fantastic story.
And you mentioned, the fact that, a few of these stories have found their way into the Evening Standard and on their website as well. Has it been a good year for press for the game of rugby league so far in 2013? I noticed that the Standard themselves, I think they published 4 rugby league stories on Monday alone just this week, which I'd never ever seen before.
That's right. I think we have been working hard, and together with my colleagues up north, been working hard on London and the southeast, and I think it's paying dividends really. It's still quite a tough market to crack, because there are so many other things going on, certainly in the sporting world, that crave attention. But I think we've done quite well, and we'll continue to push. And it's great seeing Steve Mack on BBC London News yesterday. I nearly fell off my chair when I saw Steve being interviewed by Alice Bandikravi on BBC Lunchtime, and then he was on again at later in the evening. So it's fantastic. And the other thing I have to mention is Sport Magazine, which a lot of your listeners will pick up the station Thursday evening, Friday mornings, etc.
Great publication.
Yeah, it is, and a while ago I kind of contacted them and asked about rugby league and whatever, and now I've done a few features and do a regular kind of preview of one of their games, one of the televised games usually every week, and they're very, very receptive to it. And I know the assistant editor has done a feature on Kevin Sinfield, and I think there'll be more to come, certainly with the World Cup in mind, and the big hit, which is the World Cup semi-final double-header at Wembley.
This is probably a bit journalistic for my particular programme, but do you enjoy writing for the Sport Magazine? Because I love the way that they write the articles. It's so casual and so sort of nonchalant in a way.
It's very interesting, because I think throughout my journalistic career, I've written for a wide variety of publications, and I think you have to tailor your writing to those publications.
Absolutely.
So if you're writing something for the Observer, it's very different to being asked to do something for the Sun or the Mirror. And I think Sports Magazine is the same, and I do a bit of journalistic training with students around about the region, and I tell them, if you're ever asked to do something for a particular publication or even a website, look at it first of all and get a feel of how they approach things. And certainly with sport, they do have a style which is I think fairly easygoing and laid back, and certainly that's what I try to do in the pieces I write for them.
Back on the blog, there's some great stories in there, as we've already touched on, but there's details about games as well in particular, and you were at the Challenge Cup game between Featherstone and Broncos at the weekend. What did you think? Featherstone gave the Broncos a good go for sort of 50 minutes.
They certainly did. It was 4-0 up to, I think, 53 minutes. And I've watched Featherstone quite often on Premier Sports, which I know you comment on from time to time, and I enjoy watching them. And I think they've got some good players, and they, of course, have ambitions to get into Super League. Yes. And I knew that they would be sending down the strongest team to kind of make a statement, really, because they beat Castleford last year, and if they could get another Super League scout, then that would enhance their claims for a Super League place when the licence comes around. And I thought it was a very competitive game, and there would have been some very nervous Broncos supporters, but eventually, the Broncos came through. But it was a terrific game, and I chatted to Darryl Powell afterwards, and he said, "Yeah, terrific game. Maybe we should score a few more points in the first half when we're dominant." But no, great game.
I was just going to say, what did Darryl Powell make of it? Like you say, they were taking the game seriously. They really wanted to give it a go, and I guess they were probably, in a sort of Super League style, they were so disappointed to not have won. They wouldn't have just gone, they were a Super League side, they were going to win anyway.
Not at all. Darryl was genuinely disappointed, but he's a terrific bloke, and he kind of did look at the overall picture, even kind of half an hour after the final whistle when we were doing the press conference, and he said if we'd have taken our chances a bit more, but we gave it a good go, and I think everybody in the stadium could see that. I think it would have been a different matter if we'd have played them at Post Office Road, or should I say the Big Fellow Stadium. But no, it was, and I think it's a good advert for the Cup because it was competitive, and there were lots of other competitive games on that weekend as well.
And the Challenge Cup, it's all about the sort of the giant killing, isn't it? If you wanted to steal an FA Cup cliche from football, but Wakefield hosting Hemel Stags, and Hemel giving it a good go and getting great praise from Richard Agar, the Wakefield coach.
Absolutely, and I think Hemel and the other new clubs are doing a great job for the sport.
Yeah.
They went up there, they switched the game because Pennine Drive clearly couldn't hold a game of that magnitude. And the reports I read and talking to some of the guys, it was terrific. They had an under-9s game. They entered an under-9s team in a festival before the match. Then they were very tough for the first kind of opening 10 minutes. Scored a terrific breakaway try, and we're competitive. And we often hear of Northerners being very dismissive of London Rugby League, and it's a northern sport, etc. But deep down, Rugby League fans up north like people who put in the effort.
Yeah.
And Hemel clearly did, and they got applauded off the pitch, and it was a great day for the Hemel players. Probably for some players, greatest day in their sporting lives, and I think that's what the Cup brings, and I think that's what having these new clubs in Championship 1 brings.
I've talked to many people this year about sort of how big potentially 2013 could be. There's the Rugby League World Cup. You've got these extra expansion sides in Championship 1. You'd never have dreamt of a fixture between Hemel and Wakefield a couple of years ago. And so, from a journalistic point of view, we talk about the stories and the news that's been getting out there in particular this year. Mm-hmm. Can, from a media point of view, 2013 be a big, important year for the future of the sport in non-traditional areas?
I think it can. A lot of effort has gone into the World Club planning, etc. And it's a bold decision to bring these semi-finals to Wembley. But I think it's the right decision, and if we can get a big crowd, which I think we will, capture the imagination, then, as you say, on the back of this expansion, I have to say that I think the decision to bring in these new clubs in a remodelled Championship 1 was terrific, and hats off to our operations director, Ralph Rimmer, because he's been going around all these places looking at potential clubs, and initially Northampton were going to be in it. And at the last minute, they decided they weren't quite ready. Now, that's a bold decision. Yeah. And it kind of upset the apple cart a bit, because you've only got 9 clubs in the division, which means you've got one club standing down every week. But rather than enter the competition with a club who weren't quite ready, they said, no, we'll stick with the 9. There's possibility of Coventry coming in next season. And I've said in one or two articles, this is the biggest geographical spread that the sport has ever had.
Ever.
Since 1895.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And that championship won, you've got a team, North Wales and South Wales, who will be having their own little kind of North versus South battle at some point. You've got the new ones in Oxford, Hemel. Also got, of course, London Skolars who've been around for many years. Gateshead in the northeast, and then Oldham and Rochdale, who are traditional rugby league clubs. So you've got a fantastic mix there, and it just shows you that what can happen with good planning and good grounding. And I'm sure London Skolars, although at the moment they haven't fared well in their couple of fixtures in the league, last year I think I estimated that they travelled over 4,000 miles, and their local derby I think was Doncaster, 160, 170 miles away. So it also brings together some derbies which we've never really had before. So, and it's all very exciting. And then when you get Hemel going to Skolars on the first league game and winning, that's terrific, really.
Imagine a league a few years ago where Rochdale and Oldham were the two anomalies. It would have been unheard of, wouldn't it? Finally, then, just back on the blog, there's some great stories in there. Have you got a favourite sort of incident or activity or game you've been to that you've written about on the blog?
I can't think of anything that
they're all as good as each other.
Yeah, well, it's just, I think that the best, as you know, as a kind of journalist, it's little things you overhear that are quite funny, and there's the little things that happen in the office and things like that. One thing from the blog people will realise is that we have an office tipping competition every week as Super League, and that's probably been the bane of my life because before you just watch a game and enjoy the game, but now I'm thinking, well, I've got this club to win and they're losing. Who else in the office tipping has got this? And at one point I wanted the team I'd picked to win to lose, because if they won, it meant that one of my colleagues would get a full house, and then they get bonus points and would be like 6-7 points ahead of me. And
very smug.
Absolutely. That's absolutely crazy. And when you've got, one of my colleagues, Danica Zangian, general manager of the Rugby League European Federation, although he travels all over the world, emailing me, and texting me from Casablanca, saying, how did I do? And, I'm bottom again. That's fantastic. So I hope it doesn't bore the readers, but it is quite interesting, certainly, as far as office politics are concerned.
A great chat with David, and yes, I hope you did find that interesting. As I said, I don't mind sort of delving into a bit of journo chat at times. It's interesting to me, but hopefully it just shows you the different styles and the different ways that things happen, and what is being done really to try and promote the game from the people inside the media are trying to get things out there. So things are being done, and hopefully my chat there with David Lawrenson can show you that as well. And if you haven't read his blogs, it's definitely worth checking out each week. Lawro On London, you can see a little image when you go to londonrl.com. Now, as ever, I've said if you ever get in touch with me, tell me what's happening near you or in your area. We'll talk about it on the programme. I had an email from Karl Jones, coordinator of a schools competition down in South Wales, or one of the coordinators, I should say, associated with the Scorpions. He emailed rldownsouth@gmail.com. Now, they've got their next round of games this weekend at the Knoll, and I thought I'd chat with him really about the development of the sport within the region. It's one of the expansion areas, isn't it, down in South Wales, and it's one thing that will, a region that we'll cover on the programme. So this is a bit of an interesting chat about how things are developing and sort of bedding down deeper roots within Southwest. This is me talking within Southwest, within South Wales, I should say. This is me talking with Karl Jones.
The Scorpions Cup is basically the next step, if you will, of all the community work that the Scorpions have been doing. Last season was the first season that they really made a breakthrough within the primary schools in the Neath and South Wales area. Former hooker Nathan Mossop, who was appointed as a community coach, and he went throughout the schools along with head coach Dave Clark, doing little skill sessions, running, just making all the schools aware really of the Scorpions. And this season now, the formation of that work has produced itself in the form of a competition between a number of local schools.
Well, we've talked over the weeks of the programme about sort of the importance of the school competition within an area, because it's one of those things, I think, that signifies that the sport is putting down roots because it's embedding itself within that community and within the schools, and so, not being necessarily being on the curriculum, but being involved in, long-standing traditions, like a school itself. So is this a good sign that the Scorpions are putting down these roots in particular?
Certainly, and with particularly the age group as well. Wales has always had a number of schools compete in the Carnegie Champions Schools Tournament, which is obviously secondary school competitions. Yeah. But with the Scorpions infiltrating primary schools, it means that we can get obviously younger people more involved in rugby league, and hopefully by the time they get to secondary school, and that interest is still there, they can progress through the academy system.
And how popular is it as well? Do you find that people are easily approachable and willing to get involved when you talk with them about rugby league? Do people, is the word out there? People are getting to know more?
I think, with and the World Cup has obviously helped this season. With getting the schools on board with the competition, it coincided with the World Cup going around the schools and the local area, and it made it much more of an easy sell, really. The kids were able to see up close the tournament, and it just really picked their enthusiasm.
And you've got a game there as well, in Wales in particular. And how important, we've heard from Steve McNamara elsewhere on the programme about the importance of the games at Wembley for the sort of Southern and the London audience. How important is having the World Cup, and not just a trophy, as you mentioned, coming to Wales, but the competition and competitive games as well?
Certainly, I think the double header is going to be the main one. Obviously, the tournament gets underway in Cardiff, and having not only a Wales game there, an important group game, but also England and Australia, which is arguably one of the pinnacle games, will really just set the tone, hopefully, for what we're trying to build here. Obviously, Wales has got a group game in Nice as well, and a positive result for Wales in the first game can hopefully boost the attendance for the game against the Cook Islands of the Knoll.
And just tell us about back on the juniors and the competition you've got. These are nice short games, aren't they? And they're all being played. Is it at the half time in a few of your games this year?
Yeah, there's the setup is that we have a number of games before the first team. So fans just get into the ground before kick-off are able to see the youngsters in action, and then the second round of games take place at half time. So they provide good entertainment for the fans who are mainly there for the first team, but are also able to see what work the club is doing in the community.
And I was down at the Knoll only a few weeks ago watching the Welsh Derby, and I suppose it's not a bad crowd that you get in there. People seem to enjoy their rugby league and enjoy the game, but having the juniors as well is a great way of introducing family members, extra people, and getting them along as well. So it's kind of a double shot, isn't it? It's a double target. You're hitting both at the same time.
Yeah, most definitely. Especially the family members of the children who are involved. They're obviously seeing how the club are giving them an opportunity to play rugby league, and they've been well taken care of in the game so far. So the hope is there that once the competition runs its course, then we'll see him at the Knoll more regularly.
So yes, if you do have an event or anything that's happening and you'd like us to talk about it on the programme, do please get in touch. I had a phone call this week, a bit of a random one from I think it was Newport County or Newport County Dragons or something. I'm not sure what he was. It wasn't a great mobile reception in the end, and we agreed to exchange emails, and then I haven't heard anything since then. So I'm hoping that I get some information, but they've got a big event this weekend as well. So if you are down in South Wales, unfortunately didn't manage to get them on the programme this week, but definitely worth checking out. And I did try as well to get hold of Dalton Grant, who plays for the South Wales Scorpions. Not the Dalton Grant, the former Team GB high jumper, but Dalton Grant, Welshman, playing with the South Wales Scorpions, and as I say, hoping to do a little bit more with the Scorpions over the next few weeks and months here on Rugby League Down South. And as a traditional opener to many conference seasons across the South, a number of Nines competitions take place. There is one in Wales the next couple of weeks before their Welsh conference starts. Last weekend it was the London Nines, with the Tri-Tag Rugby All-Stars winning the competition. Tri-Tag Rugby as an organisation won a number of competitions throughout the year where they play, there you go, tag rugby. Doesn't take a genius to work out, does it? They are affiliated with the RFL, and their chief executive, a guy called Phillip Browne, who I've spoken to on the programme on a couple of occasions before. He played in all the games at the weekend, and I thought I'd have a chat with him about Tri-Tag Rugby, the year ahead, and their victory in the London Nines.
Well, we started shaky. We got our first 3 victories, but they were all very tight games. We played a really tight match against the Hammersmith Hills Hoist, who we've lost to twice in the last 2 finals. So we knew it was going to be a tough game, and we scraped through that match, and we lost our last pool game to the London Skolars, and as it turned out, we were due to meet the Skolars again in the final. So we were really, I was really proud of the team, and we got up, so it was a fantastic result.
How did the final go?
Oh, it was a tough affair, very physical. Like, we knew the Skolars, they've got some big lads. They're in the gyms quite a lot. They're, some of their players are semi-professional. So I mean, they're a very good team. And we just played to our strengths. We tried to throw the ball around and try and use our speed. And we ended up getting that 16-10. So a few decisions went our way, which we were quite fortunate about. But it was a tough game, and really happy with the result.
In terms of the Nines competition, it's kind of like a season curtain raiser, isn't it, for the conference divisions? But in terms of Tri-Tag Rugby, you've not got a conference side, but you've got competitions which you run throughout the year.
Yeah, that's correct, Dan. We basically play 10 months of the year, so we have our competitions as seasonal. So, for example, our early summer season, which will be May and June, is all due to commence next week. So all the players that played in the All-Stars, they're basically players that they've come over from. I mean, some players are local as well. We have English players, Australians, New Zealanders. We even had a Japanese rugby league international in our team on the weekend. So we're a very diverse bunch, and it's basically the team we just set up as a chance for players that want to play contact that can't commit to the regular club commitments of a Tuesday, Thursday training and a match on a Saturday. So it still keeps them involved with rugby league, which is a good thing.
And we've talked about Tri-Tag Rugby, a few times over the last few years on the programmes that I've done, and it's amazing, really, quite the expansion, if you wanted to put it that way, a rugby league term, within the sort of the Tri-Tag Rugby setup. I mean, I know there's a lot of touch competitions as well, which have been set up by clubs, but this short form of the game as a recreational sport is really popular. Yeah,
basically. Tag rugby, it started in 1992 by a gentleman by the name of Perry Haddock, who was coaching St George Dragons at the time in the under-20s division, I believe it was. And he set it up as a training tool where rugby league players could play in the off-season without the contact, so to avoid injuries and to get their bodies back in shape and so forth for a grueling season ahead. Since then, when it started in Australia, it's taken off in Australia and New Zealand, and we've introduced the sport into the UK in 2009. And last summer we peaked at 140 teams across London and Reading, which has blown me away by far. I wasn't expecting it to take off as quick as it has, but it's a lot of work, but it's very, very rewarding, and it's great to see people getting out there and having plenty of fun.
I hope this isn't an unfair question, but when people look at rugby league and rugby in general, it's very confusing because they don't know sometimes whether you're talking rugby union or rugby league. And when you start talking about tag rugby, you've got touch rugby, you've got touch rugby league, which is another sport. Does it at all get confusing? I mean, I know you're affiliated with the RFL, but is there, do we need all these different types of calls? Do we need touch rugby league and tag rugby league? Is there value in having both of them, or should we really be looking to sort of just go down one strain?
Well, that's a very good question. I think, in my opinion, like touch rugby and tag rugby, I look at them as they're derivatives of rugby league, but I do look at them as separate sports, as tennis is to squash, if that makes sense. But they've got their own strategies and their own skill sets in their own right. Tag rugby is based on the 6 tackle rule from rugby league, and a lot of rules are similar to rugby league. So it is very much based. If you are a rugby league player, you'll be able to pick up tag rugby very quickly. Most definitely.
And in that respect, I guess, whether people are playing tag rugby or whether they're playing touch rugby league, the fact is they're all within a league structure, a league setup. They're all affiliated with either a club or with an RFL sort of body or an organisation like yourself. And that is only going to be good for rugby league in general, whether it be touch or whether it be tag.
I totally agree. I mean, a lot of our players, they come from diverse backgrounds. Some are rugby league, some have rugby league background, some have rugby union, some have no rugby experience whatsoever. So basically, that's the beauty of our leagues, is that it's quite an inclusive sport. So whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced, we have levels that can cater for those players. And it's good to see people from non-rugby backgrounds getting involved with tag rugby, and a lot of them have gone to see a London Broncos game for the first time, and things like that, and watching the Challenge Cup on TV. So it's good to see people being introduced to the sport, and they can see that it is close to rugby league, and they're getting involved as a spectator as well.
And if you don't mind me asking, I bumped into you obviously when you came and you joined Skolars a few years ago, and we were chatting at the pre-season opener, which was the first time that I met you. But working at Tri-Tag Rugby now, you obviously came to London to work within rugby league and to expand the game and to grow it. Have you been impressed? Have you been happy with? Have has it been a good experience for you in the game? Do you think we're further on now than where we were as a game when you arrived a few years ago?
Yes, I mean, as you mentioned, I came over from Australia to London to work for as the CEO of the London Skolars, and had an extensive background in rugby league, and I love seeing. I'm especially a big fan of the international game. Did quite a lot of work with the Fiji Rugby League, and so I basically wanted to come over and make a difference with an expansion area, and I just thought London had so much potential.
Yeah.
I've seen it come and go in terms of waves of funding, where a lot more RFL staff have been put on the ground in London, and there was some big strides made. Unfortunately, some of that funding's been cut back, so there's been a few staff losses where that could work, and it's still in place. But I still think there's so much potential here in London. But I do think it is moving forward. To answer the question, I think the game is definitely moving forward in London. So
maybe at a slower rate than it has in the past, but I guess a competition or an organisation like Tri-Tag Rugby shows really. We talked about the increase in numbers and the teams that you've got. It shows that if the work is done, then there is the potential there. And as everyone talks about, it's a massive market in London. It's so difficult to crack, and you know that too, probably more than most as well. But if the work is there and the effort is put in, then I guess the idea we talked about on the programme last week, to not give up, so stick with it, and things will happen.
Yeah, most definitely. There's a saying, if you build it, they will come. So I mean, it's basically just about not giving up and getting these correct club structures in place, having good people appointed in certain positions, like having people that are proactive. If this is going out to people that work that are volunteers at clubs. If they're organising clubs, because I see quite a lot of new clubs like the Beckenham Bears and so forth that are being set up every year, and they just need to try and be inclusive as possible. Get as many people involved. That another saying that many hands make light work. So it's just trying to get as many people involved as possible and making it as enjoyable and fun for people to stay involved in the game is what I believe anyway.
Well, those teams and those volunteers were highly praised by Steve McNamara earlier in our programme, so praise from one of the highest places within Rugby League. In terms of Tri-Tag Rugby then, Phillip, just tell us if people want to know more, if people are interested in maybe joining up with one of these sessions or entering a team and stuff, where they sort of read more details and find out more about Tri-Tag Rugby.
We've got a website at www.tritagrugby.com, which has plenty of information on our upcoming leagues. We do have one-day events, so for those working professionals in London that can't commit to, say, every Tuesday or every Wednesday night playing in the league, we do have the one-off Saturday events and Sunday events where they can still get their rugby boots on and have a run around. We have a special offer at the moment for rugby league clubs where we've got a cashback offer. It's basically open to all sports clubs, where if a team enter into one of our leagues, we give them a percentage of the fees back to support their clubs. So basically all the information's at our website, which was www.tritagrugby.com.
Phillip Browne, then, the Chief Executive of Tri-Tag Rugby. As we mentioned, you can find out more details on the website for Tri-Tag Rugby if you fancy a run out, I think is the way you call it, over the summer, and plenty other clubs as well running touch competitions. I know Skolars do one. We talked about that on the programme with Paul Thorman last week. So if you are interested, there's plenty of ways which you can play a bit of social rugby league in the evenings. And that's it then for Rugby League Down South for this week. A reminder that if you want to email anytime, rldownsouth@gmail.com. rldownsouth@gmail.com. You can tweet me at Ian Ramsdale, or you can use the hashtag RLDS for Rugby League Down South. And if you do listen on iTunes and you can rate the podcast, all you've got to do is click 1 to 5 stars, hopefully nearer 5 than 1, but it's an honest opinion, not trying to influence you in any way if you like the programme. To be fair, if you've got this far in the programme, I'm hoping it would be towards the 5 end of the podcast. But if you are listening in iTunes, or you can leave a short review, 1 sentence will do really, it would be much appreciated, and thanks to those that have already done it as well. Right, now I'm off to write a pantomime effect. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs this year. I better get cracking. Hopefully you can join me again next week on Rugby League Down South. Thanks once again for listening.